Welcome to Forbidden Texts. What you are about to see may shock you. It may surprise you, but will definitely challenge everything you thought you knew. Stick around until the end to discover the forbidden knowledge that they don't want you to have.
Ever feel like you're drowning in your own life? Like everything you thought was real is slipping through your fingers, and no matter how hard you try, you can't stop the collapse. That's not just bad luck. That's not just a rough patch. This is something much bigger, something ancient, something deep. You're experiencing what mystics and seekers throughout history have called the dark night of the soul. Most people think of spiritual awakening as this blissful, euphoric realization, like some cinematic moment where everything clicks into place, and suddenly, life just makes sense. But that's not how it really works. Every false belief, every identity, every illusion torn apart. And that's where the dark night of the soul comes in. It's the death of the old you, the real awakening. The part no one talks about because it's too ugly, too painful, too uncomfortable. This is when the universe forces you to face your deepest fears, your darkest shadows, and every hidden truth you've been avoiding. It feels like losing everything: your purpose, your joy, even your will to live. But what if I told you that's exactly the point? Why does this happen? Why does spiritual growth feel like destruction? More importantly, how do you make it through without losing yourself completely? By the time we reach the end of this journey, you'll understand exactly why you're going through this, what's on the other side, and most importantly, how to survive it. Because right now, you're in the fire. But fire doesn't just burn. It purifies. And when the flames die down, what's left will be something unstoppable. What is the dark night of the soul? You ever wake up one day and feel like the person staring back at you in the mirror is a stranger? Something inevitable. The dark night of the soul isn't just sadness. It's not just depression. It's a complete spiritual collapse. A moment when the fabric of your reality starts to tear apart at the seams, and no matter what you do, you can't stitch it back together. It's like standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down, realizing that the life you built was never solid ground to begin with. It was always an illusion. And now, that illusion is crumbling. The term dark night of the soul comes from the writings of a 16th century mystic, Saint John of the Cross. But make no mistake, this experience isn't confined to religious texts or poetic metaphors. Every major spiritual tradition has some version of it. Buddhists call it the dissolution of self. Shamans call it the initiatory death. In psychology, Carl Jung described it as the confrontation with the shadow. No matter what name you give it, it's the same experience, a descent into the depths of your own being. Every suppressed emotion, every unhealed wound, every lie you've told yourself. The worst parts of you, the ones you've buried, ignored, pretended weren't there, they all come crawling to the surface. At first, it feels like you're going insane. Like you've lost your grip on reality. The things that used to bring you joy feel meaningless. The people around you don't understand what you're going through. You feel isolated, disconnected, like you don't belong anywhere. But the real question isn't what the dark night of the soul is. It's why it's happening to you. Why, out of billions of people on this planet, are you the one being dragged through this abyss? Why does it feel like your entire world is being ripped apart while everyone else just carries on, oblivious? And more importantly, is there a way out? Why it happens to you? Why now? Why does it feel like the universe picked you out of the crowd just to tear your life apart piece by piece? Because it did. But not to destroy you, to wake you up. Maybe you started questioning your life, your beliefs, the systems you once trusted. Maybe you were searching for meaning, diving into spirituality, trying to understand something bigger than yourself. And that's exactly what triggered it. Because real awakening doesn't come from books, meditation apps, or feel-good affirmations. It comes from destruction, from being forced to face the raw, unfiltered truth about yourself and the world around you. The dark night happens when your soul decides it's time to strip away every illusion, every comfort, every lie that has kept you small and asleep. And it doesn't care if you're ready. One day, everything just stops making sense. The things you used to love now feel empty. The relationships you once depended on suddenly feel distant. Even your own mind turns against you, filling you with doubt, fear, and a relentless sense of nothingness. But let's get one thing straight. This isn't depression. Depression numbs you, drowns you in apathy. The dark night, it sharpens you. It cuts you open and forces you to feel everything. Every suppressed pain, every hidden fear, every shadow lurking beneath the surface. Because here's the truth, most of us are living in prisons of our own making. We build our identities around jobs, relationships, societal expectations, even spiritual beliefs. We tell ourselves, this is who I am. This is what makes me happy. But when the dark night hits, it rips all of that away. It shoves you into the abyss and whispers, now, who are you really? And that's the part that terrifies people the most. Because what if you're nothing? What if everything you thought you were was just a mask? What if the life you spent years building was never yours to begin with? This is the moment where most people either fight to cling onto their old selves, desperately trying to glue the broken pieces back together, or they surrender. They let go. They stop resisting and allow the transformation to happen. But before you can be reborn, you have to go through hell first. And the next step, that's where things get really dark. The phases of the dark night, you didn't sign up for this. You didn't wake up one morning and say, you know what? I'd love to feel like my entire existence is collapsing today. But here you are, trapped in the storm of your own mind, stripped of everything familiar, watching as your life crumbles in slow motion. And the worst part, you have no idea how long this is going to last. Because the dark night of the soul isn't just one moment, it's a process. A journey through complete annihilation. And if you're in it right now, you're somewhere in one of these three phases: the breakdown, the void, and the rebirth. Phase 1, the breakdown, chaos and confusion. It starts subtly. You start questioning everything. Why am I here? What's the point of any of this? Nothing makes sense anymore. The things that used to bring you joy feel hollow. The people around you don't get it. And worst of all, you feel like you're the only one going through this. This is the stage where people start grasping for control. They try to fix things, to figure out what's happening, to return to normal. But here's the hard truth: there is no going back. The person you were before, they're already gone. The more you fight, the worse it gets. You might lose friends, relationships, jobs. Your emotions spiral. One moment you're numb, the next you're drowning in sadness, then suddenly overcome with rage. This is where people feel the most insane. But you're not crazy. You're awakening. And once the chaos has stripped away everything that wasn't real, you're left with nothing. And that's when you enter the second phase. Phase 2, the void, emptiness, and isolation. Welcome to the abyss. This is the part no one talks about. The part where nothing happens. You feel empty, disconnected, like a ghost wandering through a world that no longer feels real. You don't care about your dreams. You don't care about the future. Some days, you don't even care if you wake up the next morning. This is why most people give up here. They assume they're broken. They turn to distractions, alcohol, mindless scrolling, anything to fill the void. But that's not what this phase is for. The void exists to strip you bare, to erase every attachment, every false identity, every last remnant of the person you thought you were. This is the death before the rebirth. And the only way out is through. At some point, something shifts. Maybe it's a thought, a whisper, a flicker of something new. And then you emerge. Phase 3, the rebirth, a new you emerges. It doesn't happen all at once.
A quick message. This space has become something truly special for many of us. A community of people on a shared journey of spiritual growth, healing, and awakening. Your comments and stories inspire me every day, and it's clear there's so much more we can create together, especially since this path can feel lonely at times. That's why we've created a spiritual space on Patreon, a sanctuary for deeper connection, exclusive content, and meaningful conversations with others from this channel who share your journey. Together, we can build something uplifting, authentic, and spiritually powerful. If this resonates with you and you'd like to be part of something bigger, whatever you're going through, you'll find the link in the description or pinned in the comments. Your membership not only helps support the channel, but also helps grow this beautiful community. Let's create something amazing together.
The fears that controlled you, gone. The illusions you clung to, shattered. The life you thought you wanted, irrelevant. And for the first time, you feel free. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've let go of the need for it to be. You've made it through the fire, and what remains is real. But here's the thing, this transformation doesn't happen by accident. There's a science to it. A spiritual and psychological breakdown of why this happens, how it rewires your mind, and why fighting it only makes it worse. And that's what we're diving into next. The psychological and spiritual science behind it. If you've made it this far, you already know the dark night of the soul isn't just some emotional breakdown. It's something deeper, something deliberate. But what if I told you that what's happening inside you, this complete collapse of identity, isn't just spiritual? It's biological. Your mind, your brain, your nervous system, they're all going through a process as ancient as human consciousness itself. And for good reason. The part of you that's breaking apart, the you that's vanishing, is what psychologists call the ego. It's the identity you've built over a lifetime. The version of yourself that you thought was real. But here's what they don't tell you: your ego isn't you. It's a program. A carefully constructed set of beliefs, habits, and narratives designed to keep you safe. It's the voice in your head that says, "This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is how life works." And when the dark night hits, it starts deleting that program. Your brain interprets this as a literal threat to survival. Because as far as your nervous system is concerned, identity loss equals death. The same parts of your brain that activate during physical danger, the amygdala, the fight or flight response, fire up when your ego is dissolving. The Buddhists call it the dissolution of self. The Sufis call it fana, or complete annihilation of the ego. The alchemists of the Middle Ages had an entire system built around this concept, what they called the Nigredo phase, the blackening, the breaking down of the old self before gold could be made. This is not new. This is not random. This is the formula of transformation. Because the truth is, most people don't change unless they're forced to. The ego doesn't want to let go. It will cling, resist, fight tooth and nail to stay in control. But at some point, the universe or your own higher self steps in and says, "Enough." That's when the breakdown happens. That's when the ego collapses. And here's where it gets interesting. Why resistance makes it worse the more you fight this process. The worse it feels. The people who suffer the most during the dark night are the ones who refuse to surrender. They try to go back to their old lives, to force themselves into old routines, to hold on to beliefs that no longer fit. But you can't unsee the truth. You can't unknow what you've come to realize. And that's when the shift happens. Not instantly, not overnight, but gradually, like winter turning to spring. One day, you wake up and realize the fear is gone. The panic is gone. The void isn't empty anymore, it's peaceful. And now, the real question, what do you do next? Because survival isn't enough. You didn't go through all of this just to return to normal. The person you were before doesn't exist anymore. So what do you do now? That's what we're about to unlock. Because the next step, it's not about surviving. It's about becoming. How to navigate and survive it. So you've been dragged through hell. You've lost everything you thought made you you. The old version of yourself is gone, burned away, and now you're standing in the wreckage, looking around, wondering, now what? But if you stay there, if you keep clinging to what's already dead, you'll never break through to the other side. This is the moment where you decide, are you going to rise, or are you going to let this destroy you? And here's the secret, there's a way through. A way to navigate the darkness so that you don't just survive it. You transcend it. Surrendering to the process, first things first, stop fighting it. The pain, the fear, the confusion, it's all happening for you, not to you. The more you resist, the worse it gets. The people who suffer the longest in the dark night are the ones who try to hold on to their old selves, their old beliefs, their old way of living. You're not that person anymore. The faster you accept that, the faster you'll start to heal. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means allowing yourself to break open. It means embracing the unknown, even when it's terrifying. Because the more you lean into it, the more the universe starts to guide you. You'll start noticing strange synchronicities, books falling into your lap at the right moment, conversations that shift your perspective, dreams that feel more real than reality. One day, you wake up and, for a split second, you don't feel lost. You don't feel numb. You just are. A growing sense of detachment. The things that used to trigger you, they don't hit the same anymore. The arguments, the expectations, the drama, you don't feel the need to engage. New clarity about who you are. You might not have all the answers, but something inside you knows you're not the same. The old you is gone, and that's okay. An unexpected moment of joy. Maybe it's just a sunset, a song, a deep breath where, for the first time in what feels like forever, you feel alive. There are tools, practices that help you navigate the darkness and integrate what you've learned. Meditation and stillness. Not for escape, but for awareness. To sit in the discomfort and witness it without judgment. Journaling and shadow work. Writing down your thoughts, your fears, your realizations, getting them out of your head and onto paper can be life-changing. Letting go of old attachments, relationships, beliefs, identities, anything that no longer aligns with who you're becoming needs to be released. Trust that this is leading you somewhere. Because here's the truth, no one stays in the dark night forever. Every single person who has gone through this has made it out. And when they do, they don't just go back to who they were. They don't return to an old life. They evolve. Which leads to the final, most important question. Who do you become after the dark night? You're not the same. And you never will be. This is the part no one prepares you for, the after phase. Because the dark night of the soul isn't just about breaking down. It's about becoming. But becoming what? That's entirely up to you. The awakening after the storm, for the first time in what feels like forever, you wake up without the weight of shit pressing down on you. You start seeing life differently, not through the lens of fear, but through clarity. The things you once chased, money, validation, approval, don't control you anymore. The beliefs you once held so tightly, gone. And in their place, something new. A sense of freedom. A knowing that you don't have to be anything other than what you are. You stop reacting to life. You start creating it. They'll try to pull you back. Try to remind you of who you used to be. But you're not that person anymore. Because that person died in the fire. Your new purpose and path, here's the paradox: when you finally make it through the dark night, you don't come out with all the answers. You come out with one. You don't need them. You stop looking for someone to hand you a roadmap. You realize that you are the map. That every answer you've ever searched for was never out there. It was inside you all along. So, what now? That's where most people get stuck. They think, I've gone through hell. I should have some divine purpose waiting for me. But that's not how this works. The purpose isn't something you find. It's something you choose. You get to build your life from scratch now. Not based on old conditioning, not based on fear, but on truth. Your truth. Some people dedicate themselves to healing others. Some create, some teach, some simply live with a level of peace they never imagined possible. Whatever you do, it's no longer coming from a place of ego, but from something higher. But if you take one thing from this, take this: the dark night of the soul doesn't happen to punish you. It happens to free you, to rip away everything that isn't you, so that what remains is something untouchable, unshakable. The deeper the night, the brighter the dawn. And you are the dawn.